Even if you've never read the 16th century novel Journey to the West, I have a hunch that you've felt its cultural significance. Although the classic Chinese story is more than 400 years old, it's managed to inspire everything from Dragon Ball to Sun to Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Unruly Heroes is the newest video game to adapt the famous novel, and while the material may seem well worn at this point, this multiplayer-focused side-scroller does a good job of setting itself apart with a great sense of humor, creative level designs, and graphics that are to die for. But watch out, because the Journey to the West is a bumpy ride filled with gameplay problems that you might not see coming. This is the story of what happens when the sacred scrolls that maintain harmony are torn apart and scattered throughout the land. The result is a plague of monsters that leave death and chaos in their wake. To combat this tide of violence, 4 unruly heroes have decided to team up in an attempt to restore peace and order to heaven and earth. But are these the right heroes for the job? Even the narrator seems a little unsure. If you know anything about Journey to the West, then this quartet won't come as much of a surprise. There's Wukong, a fearless monkey with a powerful staff. Sanzang, a wise monk with a penchant for magic. Qihong, a greedy pig that can balloon in size if needed. And Sand Monk, a sensitive brute who specializes in close quarters combat. These 4 warriors will need to use teamwork and their special abilities to overcome puzzles and fight off 29 stages filled with powerful monsters. Right off the bat, you'll discover that Wukong and Sand Monk can double jump their way to hard-to-reach areas, while Qihong and Sanzang can only float over large gaps. The differences extend to individual abilities, such as Wukong being able to use his staff to create a bridge, or Sanzang throwing energy balls in order to unlock a gate. You'll also find that some characters are more powerful than others, something that allows Sand Monk to bust through stone walls with his bare hands. If you can't tell by the description, this is intended to be played with a bunch of friends working together. But don't worry, solo players aren't left out. Instead of relying on your friends to know what to do, you'll spend the game swapping between the 4 characters at a push of a button. This ends up giving us a strategic advantage since the different characters each have their own life bar. And don't worry too much about dying, you can lose 2 or 3 of your heroes, but just as long as you have 1 good guy left, you'll be able to resurrect the rest and continue fighting. I played through the entire game by myself and never once felt like I was missing out. Now, part of the reason is because the adventure is legitimately epic. And I don't say that lightly because the 29 stages take you on a journey to hell and back. The stages don't just look incredible, but they're also a lot more diverse than you might expect. Unruly Heroes lulls you into expecting the usual 2D platforming puzzles after the first couple of stages. But then things get weird. There are stages where the characters are turned into babies, areas where you'll be able to reverse gravity, and even bits where you can literally take over an enemy's body and use it against the other monsters. And it's not just one enemy you can do that with, but multiple bad guys, each with their own attacks and abilities. Best of all, the 29 stages are all long and won't be completed in a single sitting. Like I said, this game is epic. It's also gorgeous. This is an absolutely stunning game with graphics that look like they were hand-painted onto the screen. The backgrounds are constantly changing and filled with detail, something that looks even better thanks to the game's liberal use of soft focus. And just wait until you see the bosses. This game is overflowing with creative and occasionally funny boss designs, and I love how each of them comes at you in a slightly different way. Every time I felt like Unruly Heroes couldn't possibly get any prettier, the developers proved me wrong with an even bigger and cooler set piece. I couldn't wait to see what the game had in store for me next, and I was never disappointed. Unfortunately, I was a little let down by the gameplay. If there's a weak link in Unruly Heroes, this is it. The problem is that the game seems to prioritize the animation over everything else, which leads to a lot of moments where you'll die in ridiculous ways. And to make matters worse, the platforming feels floaty and lacks the precision you'd want from this type of game. This is especially true late in the game, where pinpoint accuracy is essential to survival. It never felt like I was fully in control of these characters, even after I had spent the better part of 10 hours sending them through one harrowing stage after another. The control issues only get worse when we're asked to hang off of the platforms. There's an entire section of the game where there are these platforms you can't stand on, so the only way to navigate them is to dangle using a glowing light. The reason why all this is happening isn't important, but what matters is that leaping from these invisible platforms works about half the time. Either you'll get a nice big jump in the air, or you'll go absolutely nowhere. It's impossible to tell which of those two things will happen, which makes some of the timed areas really frustrating. I feel like with a little tightening and polish, the gameplay could be as striking as the visuals, but as it is, the controls are kind of a mess. Unruly Heroes is an epic adventure with stunning visuals, a great sense of humor, and some truly inventive level designs. Every single stage is filled with standout moments, and I'm in love with a few of the boss fights. Unfortunately, some of my enthusiasm is derailed by floaty controls and combat that devolves into senseless button mashing. But don't let that be a deal breaker, because Unruly Heroes gets almost everything else right. It's not perfect, but Unruly Heroes is worth it for the gorgeous graphics and lengthy story. Now, go on and prove that doubtful narrator wrong. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now here's the question I have for you. What are your favorite games based on books or fairy tales? I can't wait to see what you come up with, so leave your thoughts in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back tomorrow with a review of Onikin on the Switch, along with a brand new quiz on Friday. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.